जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी। जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी। जय गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। जय गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजन। यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजन। यमुना तीरावनचारी। यमुना तीरावनचारी। जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी। जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी। जय गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजन। यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजन। यमुना तीरावनचारी। यमुना तीरावनचारी। जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी। जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी। जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य ष्टोदरक श्री श्रीमद डिवाइन ग्रेस श्रीला भाई चरणारविंद भक्ति वेदांत गोस्वामी महाराज श्रील प्रभुपाद की। इस्कॉन विबड़ संस्थापक आचार्य श्रील प्रभुपाद की। जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य ष्टोदरक श्री श्रीमद डिवाइन ग्रेस श्रील भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती ठाकुर प्रभुपाद की। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की। नामाचार्य श्रील हरदास ठाकुर की। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासदि गौर भक्त वृंद की। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड श्री गिरि गोवर्धन की। ब्रजभूमि श्री वृंदावन धाम की। पुरुषोत्तम क्षेत्र श्री जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की। नवद्वीप मायापुर धाम की। गंगा माई जमुना माई की। भक्ति देवी तुलसी महारानी की। कलियुग पावन श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की। हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की। श्रील प्रभुपाद ट्रांसेंडेंटल बुक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन की। निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे। All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories, all glories, all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshtarane. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Reading from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, text 9. Janma karma cha me divyam, evam yo veti tattvata, tyaktva deham punarjanma, naiti mameti sorjuna. Janma karma cha me divyam, evam yo veti tattvata, tyaktva deham punarjanma, naiti mameti sorjuna. Janma karma cha me divyam, evam yo veti tattvata, tyaktva deham punarjanma, naiti mameti sorjuna. Mataji's.
Janma karma cha me divyam, evam yo veti tattvata, tyaktva deham punarjanma, naiti mameti sorjuna.
Janma karma cha me divyam, evam yo veti tattvataha, tyaktva deham punarjanma, naiti mameti sorjuna.
Janma, birth, karma, work, cha, also, me, of mind, divyam, transcendental, evam, like this, yaha, anyone, who, veti, knows, tattvata, in reality, tyaktva, leaving aside, deham, this body, punaha, again, janma, birth, na, never, eti, does attain, mam, unto me, eti, does attain, saha, he, Arjuna, O Arjuna. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. Purport. The Lord's descent from His transcendental abode is already explained in the 6th verse. One who can understand the truth of the appearance of the personality of Godhead is already liberated from material bondage, and therefore he returns to the kingdom of God immediately after quitting this present material body. Such liberation of the living entity from material bondage is not at all easy. The impersonalists and the yogis attain liberation only after much trouble and many, many births. Even then, the liberation they achieve, merging into the impersonal Brahma Jyoti of the Lord, is only partial, and there is a risk of returning to this material world. But the devotee, simply by understanding the transcendental nature of the body and activities of the Lord, attains the abode of the Lord after ending this body, and does not run the risk of returning to this material world. I'll just read till here. So, first of all, thank you for inviting me, Naveen Neerad Prabhu, on behalf of ISKCON ISV. Probably I should thank you. I'm not sure, but you're the one I know know the most here. So thanks for inviting me and welcoming me. And I'm also happy to welcome my old friend Srinivas. This is Srini, who's my classmate from school and also in IIT. And he's been around in Bay Area for last 25 years. So I went to the Bay of Mumbai, he came to the Bay of here. So this beautiful verse, one of the favorite verses of Srila Prabhupada, describes about Krishna's transcendence. Janma karma chame divyam. So Sridhar Swami explains about the name of Krishna is transcendental. And basically, in the Gajendra Moksha prayers, when Gajendra is glorifying the Lord, he explains how the Lord, when he appears within this material world, is completely transcendental. And therefore, each one of his features is transcendental, including his birth, his qualities, his name, activities, etc. So Sridhar Swami gives a purport to this, and he says, when you say the name of the Lord is transcendental, what does it mean? So generally any object which is created, after that object is created, then as a society we come together and decide to call it by a certain sound vibration. We call this the microphone. We have all agreed to call it the microphone. It was not that before creation the name was there. Right? We decide to call this kartal. So manograhyasya vastuno vyavaharartham kenapi sanketita shabda iti nama. So he defines name as, first of all, objects which can be comprehended by the mind and the senses. Manograhyasya vastuno. The object must be under comprehension of the mind and the senses. Vyavaharartham. For what purpose? For practical dealings. To enable practical dealings. Right? If, I call it mic and you call it truck, someone else calls it a gulab jamun, then, when you say, set up the gulab jamun, so everyone will be confused. So practical dealings is not possible. So the important point here is vyavaharartham. Kenapi sanketita shabda iti nama. So when all of us decide to call a certain object by a certain symbol or a certain sound vibration, shabda, that it is called nama. Whereas when Krishna is, taking his appearance in this world, Krishna's names are eternal. And therefore it is not that after Krishna is born and before Krishna is born the name is not there, and after he is born then the name is given. So therefore the important word here is vyavaharartham kenapi sanketita shabda. So Krishna's name is not a sound vibration which is imposed upon the personality for the purpose of some practical dealings. They are eternal. Bahuni santi namani rupani cha sutasyate. So therefore that's the transcendental nature of Krishna's name. So when we are taking initiation, so at the time of initiation, we are actually given a certain name, and that is followed by the word Das, which means we are servants of that Supreme Lord who is transcendental. Like that. So, when Prabhupada was giving initiation, he would always say that the most important part of the name is Das. Right? So after one initiation, they were discussing, this name is better, that name is better. There was a comparison going on. I got Braj name, you just got general name, Paramatma. So some people may start thinking, okay, this is superior, this is inferior. So Hansadut Prabhu tells the story that before he joined he had a German name, Hans Carey. And, they were making fun of him, so he wanted after initiation a good name. Because when you are from one place and you go to another place, then sometimes they make fun. Because socially they can't understand that name so well. So it's become subject of ridicule. Right? Like, we grew up in north and then we are from south. So sometimes you have a long name. Kanakapati Apalachalam Sankari Lingam Zagapati Raju. So that's like one person. And you go to China, then it becomes Hu. The name ends. So there is a wide difference in the type of names available. So when he got the initiation, Prabhupada gave him the name Hamsaduta Adhikari. So he said, what's the meaning? Prabhupada said, your old name, Hans, you add one Duta to it. And then you had second name, Kari, you add Adhi. It becomes Adhi Kari. So he said, even after Diksha I got the same name. So he asked Prabhupada, what is the meaning of this? Prabhupada said, read Bhagavatam, you'll figure out. So he went through the Bhagavatam, he couldn't get the name. And then Prabhupada was sitting in another initiation. He was talking about, Brahmanand means this means that. So he was giving the meanings of different names. He thought this is a good chance. He said, Prabhupada, who is Hamsaduta? Prabhupada said, you. So when we take initiation, it is trying to establish that the real identity of the jiva is I am Jivera Swarupoi Krishnera Nitya Das. So we are trying to establish our identity as an eternal servant of Krishna. And therefore, this is a very important point which is emphasized, that because Krishna is transcendental, Mamayvamsho Jivaloke Jivbhuta Sanatana, every soul is eternally a part and parcel of Krishna. And when the soul is trying to enjoy things in this material world, he experiences the exact opposite experience of frustration. And Bhagavatam says, Bhukta Bhoga Parityakta Drishta Dosha Cha Nityasa Na Ishvarasya Ashubham Dhatte Swe Mahimni Sthitasya Cha. So when the conditioned soul tries to enjoy as a proprietor, as a master, Bhukta Bhoga, then he sees that he is going through suffering. Drishta dosha cha nityasha. So he can see the fault in that effort to try to be the controller and the enjoyer. And because of that frustration, he wants to understand what's the real path. Na ishvarasya ashubham dhatte swe mahimni sthitasya cha. He realizes that the real eternal identity of the soul is he is part and parcel of the supreme eternal Krishna. And therefore, the enjoyership results in anxiety, and I must involve myself in servitude. And therefore, he decides to change the pattern of his activities. He decides to change his attitude. Na ishvarasya ashubham dhatte swe mahimni sthitasya cha. Therefore, when Krishna is telling here to Arjuna, Janma karma chame divyam. So don't be obsessed with your own activities in this material world. your own egocentric thinking patterns, your own plans for enjoying objects of this world, because ultimately that will cause frustration, anxiety, entrapment, and there is no end to it. Therefore, transfer that thinking process to understand about Krishna's birth, Krishna's activities, Krishna's name, Krishna's qualities. And when you do that, then the soul celebrates its eternal servitude to Krishna. Prabhupada was on a morning walk, and then, it was in Venice Beach and they were seeing the ocean. So one devotee just commented that, Prabhupada, the ocean looks beautiful. So Prabhupada said, yes, from a distance. When you go near, the ocean will trap you and drown you. And then Prabhupada said, Maya is also like that. Looks beautiful from distance. You go near, you'll be trapped. Right? So in Jagannath Puri, we were in a yatra and there was a large gathering of devotees. And His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj was swimming inside the ocean. And Puri ocean is very tempestuous, very stormy. And he was not coming out. And so the servant went in and said, Maharaj, what happened? He said, Arey, my gamcha is gone. The ocean is so powerful. And how can I come out? Devotees are standing with camera outside. You can't come out. So the servant went, gave another gamcha, and he came out, and then he said, when I entered the ocean, I went as a Gaudiya sannyasi. I would have come out as a Naga Baba. And then he said, make announcement, nobody should go inside too deep, the water is very rough. It will trap you. The currents are very strong. So, being part of the Yatra committee, devotees started making announcements. Please don't go, please don't go. But there was this one devotee, who was overconfident. And he was warned not to go, but he said, I grew up next to the ocean, So I'm so expert swimmer. Nothing can happen to me. So with that overconfidence, he went deep inside. The waves trapped him. He couldn't come. He couldn't come back towards the shore. He realized the end is near. So there was fear in his eyes. He raised both his hands and started crying out. The devotees thought he's saying Hari Bol. So initially they said Hari Bol. And then someone said, no, he looks to be in trouble. So we asked the Naliya, the lifeguard, to jump in. So the lifeguard went, caught hold of him, brought him out, took out the water from his stomach. So I was standing there, so I told him, he has saved your life, the lifeguard, give him some money. So he took out 150 rupees and gave. I said, he saved your life, you are giving only this much? He said, in the Discover Yourself book of Radhe Shyam Prabhu, I have read, body cost 150 rupees. So then I said, okay, you were so confident, we warned you repeatedly not to go. Why you went? He said, in my life, I never expected that I will have any difficulty while swimming, because I learned it so at such a young age and I am so expert. And I teach hundreds of people swimming every year. So that is the danger when you are an expert. Because when somebody doesn't know swimming, when the water touches the toes, you become satisfied. And we have seen that. Even you force the guy, come in. I said, no, bas. Aap jaiye. Santusht, we are satisfied. Because there is fear, there is anxiety. Whereas when someone is expert, there is overconfidence. And because of that overconfidence, one feels nothing will happen. Let me go in deep, no problem. So like that, when we refer to the material energy, the waves of material energy can trap any of us anytime. But it requires a lot of maturity to be always fearful that this material energy will trap me. And therefore, Krishna says to Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita that Mam eva ye prapadyante mayam etam tarantite. So therefore, here it is described that the soul is part and parcel of Krishna, and the material energy is also an energy of the Lord, but the difference between the material energy and the jiva is the jiva has tendency to be overwhelmed by the material energy and lose contact with Krishna's spiritual potency. And therefore Krishna has to manifest his transcendental form, name, pastimes, in order to attract the attention of the conditioned soul. So in the pastime of the 10th canto, Krishna is born in a jail in Mathura. So Krishna is born inside that jail, and that's a very interesting phenomenon, because even a normal person in this world manages to have, some comfortable setting for his children to be born. But Krishna is born in a jail to demonstrate that this material world is a place of great suffering and anxiety. And therefore circumstances in this world cannot be controlled, only consciousness can be controlled. So when Krishna appears in Hastinapur, he's performing pastimes with the Pandavas. When Ram is performing pastimes in Ayodhya, both of them are sharing a common theme. Do not think you can control circumstances. You can only control the consciousness. So Krishna is born after Vasudeva and Devaki go through tremendous suffering. And then Krishna is born as the 8th son. And as soon as Krishna is born, he tells Vasudeva to pick me up and take me across to Gokul Mahavan. So at that point, Vasudeva, his entire life has been experiencing repeated failures. So Vasudeva as a Kshatriya has not been successful at all. A successful Kshatriya means one who is able to protect. So on the day of marriage, he couldn't protect his wife. He couldn't give a decent accommodation for her. And then he couldn't protect his 6 sons from being killed. So from the perspective of a Kshatriya, he was failed. And so when you go through repeated failures, you lose confidence. And you feel that I can't do this. And then you dread whenever someone comes and asks you to do that. Because you feel, okay, one more failure is going to come. So when Krishna is telling Vasudeva, pick me up and take me across. So Vasudeva should be, completely in fear, thinking that, I already messed up with the other sons. I couldn't protect any of them. And my feet are shackled, the jail is closed, and there is river Yamuna which has to be crossed. How I am going to do this? How is it going to be possible? So that would be the natural thought which comes in someone's mind. So therefore, Krishna is born in order to demonstrate that when we are establishing a relationship with him, then we have to go beyond the paradigm of mere material, mundane logic and reason. And we have to develop Shraddha or faith. And so Vasudeva ji had that faith, and with that faith, he picked up Krishna because he was confident that if Krishna is giving the order, then he will also consider giving me the empowerment to execute this order and perform this service. So along with Krishna's instruction comes the empowerment to perform that service. So as soon as Vasudeva picks up Krishna, immediately the jail doors open. Immediately all of the shackles, they break away. And Vasudeva ji carries Krishna further, and then the Yamuna also parts and is able to successfully go to Gokul Mahavan. I was giving a Janmashtami talk in IIT a few years ago, and one student was talking to me after the class, and he said, if the 8th son was going to kill Kamsa, So the simplest thing for Kamsa to do was to keep Vasudeva in one jail and Devaki in another jail. So no son would be born. So that was the best idea which Kamsa could have used. Didn't he get it? So I said, he didn't go to IIT like you, what to do? So दोनों को अलग अलग रख देता, problem ही नहीं होता. No issue at all. But the reason Krishna performs and orchestrates this pastime is so that we understand that we need to have faith in his words. So Krishna tells Vasudevji, and Vasudevji simply picks up Krishna. At the moment he is picking up Krishna, he doesn't know what's going to come next. He doesn't know. We have heard the pastime hundreds of times, so when we hear, we know what's going to come. But Vasudeva, when he is picking up, he doesn't know. And that's what is called Shraddha. So therefore, sa Shraddhadhanasya vivardhamana virakti manyatra karoti pumsa. Harer padanusmriti nirvritasya samasta dukkhapyayam ashudhate. So Bhagavatam describes that Shraddha is generated by repeated hearing about Krishna and Krishna's pastimes, Krishna's glories, and seeing how Krishna has orchestrated and intervened in the lives of devotees and helped them at different stages. Helped them sometimes with success, helped them sometimes with repeated failure, but overall, Krishna has helped them increase their faith in him. So that's the most important principle being described here. That Shraddha, that faith. How that faith in Krishna can increase. So ta Krishna vahe Vasudeva agate. As soon as Vasudeva picks up Krishna, swayam vyavartanta yatha tamorave. Immediately every obstacle is removed. So similarly, it's important to realize that we begin the day with the chanting of the holy names. And that nama, that name of Krishna which we chant, is not material, it is completely transcendental. And therefore, all the various obstacles which we may experience in the day are destroyed simply by the chanting of those holy names. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. So therefore Prabhupada instituted what is known as the morning program, where we begin the day with this meditation on the chanting of the holy names. Kanchana sadrisha deha aruna vasan pulaka ashru kampas sweda tahate bhushan. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu inaugurated the Harinam Sankirtan in Alarnath. And the effulgence of his body attracted and enchanted everyone's hearts. And when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu experienced symptoms of ecstasy, that was like the bhushan, that was the ornament decorating his entire body. And everyone in this world is looking for joy and ecstasy. And when they saw Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, everyone participated in the chanting of the holy names. Chaudiketa sabaloka bole Hari Hari, Prema Veshe Madhye Nritya Kare Gaur Hari. And Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was right in the midst of everyone, chanting those names, and enchanted and attracted the hearts of everyone there in Alarnath. Keh nache keh gaye Sri Krishna Gopal, Premete bhasil lokastri vruddha abal. So Krishna himself has said in Bhagavad Gita, Satatam kirtayanto mam, always chant the names. Somebody was arguing with me, why we must chant 16 rounds? I said, no, we should not chant 16 rounds, we must chant Satatam. Krishna says in Gita, Satatam kirtayanto, constantly chant. So we are supposed to chant 24 hours. But Prabhupada knows that we can't do that, so he said 16 rounds. So Satatam Kirtayanto is the standard which Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. So here, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he is chanting, everyone gets involved in that chanting. And seeing that Harinam Sankirtan, Lord Nityananda Prabhu is inspired And Lord Nityananda Prabhu points to that chanting of the Harinam going on, led by Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he says, Dekhi Nityananda Prabhu kahe bhakta gane, ei rupe nritya age hobe grame grame. Nityananda Prabhu predicts that this Harinam which is happening here in Alarnath, this Harinam Sankirtan will spread in every town and village. And finally the Harinam Sankirtan will also happen in San Jose. Nityananda Prabhu predicted, Ei rupe nritya age hobe grame grame. In every town and village. Like that. So Srila Prabhupada, he was a grahastha. And when he was in his household life in Sitakant Banerjee Lane in Kolkata, he had one room on the first floor, which he had given to the Gaudiya Math devotees, and they were teaching Sanskrit, Harinamamrit Vyakaran. So one of Prabhupada's godbrothers, Dol Govinda Shastri, was the teacher there. So Prabhupada would chant on the outside of the house, sometimes on the side staircase. So Prabhupada was sitting on the staircase and chanting. Dol Govinda Shastri came out, sat right next to Prabhupada, and he said, I just gave a lecture on this verse, Prithivite Achiyata Nagaradi Gram Sarvatra Prachara Hoibe Muranam. But I don't know whether the words which Mahaprabhu has spoken, will it become true or not? In every town and village, how will it happen? So Prabhupada was chanting. He smiled. He got up and came down 2 steps. And when he came down 2 steps, he turned back and looked at Dol Govinda Shastri, and he said very confidently, if Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had made that prediction, it will definitely happen. Then Prabhupada took 2 more steps down, turned around and looked at Dol Govinda Shastri and added, someday a fool who surrendered at the lotus feet of Srila Saraswati Thakur will make it happen. So now Dol Govinda Shastri is also Saraswati Thakur disciple. So for a moment, a thought came in his mind, could that be me? So Prabhupada took 2 more steps down, turned around, looked at Dol Govinda Shastri and said, it will not be you. So he was shocked. And at that point, he was thinking in his mind, what does Abhay Babu think? He is going to do it? How can he do it? He is always thinking of money. Abhay Babu means money, money, money. Business, business, business. That's what they thought. So therefore, Grihe Krishna Bhajimura Kora Ashirvade Nilachale Asyana Tumara Prasade. Mahaprabhu, while leaving Jagannath Puri, he goes to the house of Sarabham Bhattacharya and says, I seek your blessings, O Sarabham Bhattacharya, because you are worshipping Krishna at home. So Prabhupada writes in the purport, Sannyasi is seeking blessings of Grihastha. What is going on here? So Prabhupada writes in the purport, that is what Mahaprabhu has given the power. That if you sincerely worship Krishna at home, even Grihastha gets power to bless sannyasi. That should not be the motivation to worship Krishna at home. But Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has made it accessible to each and everyone. Just by the Harinam Sankirtan. Just through the Naam. Matta Simha Praya Prabhu Korila Gaman Prema Vese Yai Kuri Nama Sankirtan. So Mahaprabhu takes the name and then he proceeds towards the South India crying out the holy names in all directions. So therefore through this Harinam Sankirtan, which has become transcendental due to the fact that Krishna's name is completely spiritual and transcendental, each one of us can connect with Krishna directly. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada has instituted that every day we begin the morning with chanting of the names. So just like Vasudeva picked up Krishna in his hand, like that when we pick up the holy names of Krishna in our mind, automatically all kinds of inconceivable obstacles and difficulties which is impossible to remove by any material arrangement, they will all be removed simply by the power and the grace of this Harinam. एकाकी आमार नाही पाइबल हरिनाम संकीर्तने, तुम्ही कृपा करी श्रद्धा बिंदु दिया देह कृष्ण नाम धुने. So Mahaprabhu is saying, we need the strength of the association of devotees to get this faith, to get this shraddha, to get this enthusiasm to chant the Harinam Sankirtan. Like that. So therefore, this is a very important point, and we need to realize that it's not easy to actually chant the holy names on a regular basis. Because only when you have completed a certain number of pious credits from the past life, it's possible to chant the Harinam. Durapahi alpatapasa seva vaikuntha vartmasu yatropa giyate nityam deva devo janardana. Someone who has not performed sufficient tapasya will not get the association of devotees. He will not get the inspiration to chant the holy names. So we should not take it for granted that we are chanting. So what is the big deal? Anyone can chant. Now someone was arguing with me that, I come to the temple to relax, and then you guys make me filled with anxiety by saying chant 4 round, 8 round, 12 round. As soon as you start counting, anxiety increases, I think bhakti is a matter of the heart. And it should just flow freely from the heart. And you should not say chant these many rounds, that many rounds. Whenever I feel like chanting, I will chant. I said, how often you feel like? He said, never. That's the reason why you have to have a minimum number. Right? One doctor in the Bhaktivedanta hospital I was preaching to, he told him chant, 4 rounds. He said, 4 rounds? Do you know how much that is? 4 rounds. You think I'm a full-time brahmachari like you? I'm all the time or what? I'm so busy morning till night, I'm in the operation theatre only. I don't have time for 4 rounds. I said, okay, 2 rounds. 2 rounds! So whatever number I was saying, he was just getting jhatka only. So I said, okay, finally we settled at 4 mantras. When you are preaching, you have to, negotiate for whatever is available. So I said, something is better than nothing. 4 mantras. So he started 4 mantra, and then for 1 year, 2 years. After 3 years, he came to 2 or 3 years, he came to 64 mantras. And he was thinking that he is making a major sacrifice in his life by devoting time for this. And he would every week come and report to me. Whenever I would go to the hospital, he would say, 4 chal raha, 8 chal raha, 16 chal raha. So that day came, many initiated devotees were standing and talking. He came in the midst of them and said, my 64 is going on. So these devotees got bewildered. They looked at me and said, what a powerful preaching you are doing. I said, not rounds, mantras. So therefore, we may think, it's so easy to do this, so easy to do that. But it is actually very difficult to take to the chanting of the holy names as a lifetime commitment. It was early in the morning, I was traveling in train, and I was chanting as slowly as possible, and one other gentleman was there nearby. I think he could hear the chanting even though it was soft. So he was trying his level best to turn left and right. And he put the kambal on his head also, tried to cover himself. The holy name pierces the whole universe. So after some time he got up, looked at me and said, Arey, why don't you allow Krishna to sleep in the morning? He told me in Hindi, Arey, subah Krishna ko to sone de yaar. So we may think, okay, this chanting of the holy names in the morning, what's the big deal? But Jiva Goswami Pad says, if you commit 100 offenses, then the mind becomes distracted. In the chanting of the Harinam, the mind cannot be absorbed. If you commit 1,000 offenses, then one will not be able to follow the 4 regulatory principles. And if we commit more than 10,000 offenses, it will be impossible to even bring the name on the lips. So therefore, we should feel grateful that Krishna is giving us the opportunity to chant the holy names and connect with his holy names. And that holy name, which was actually initially revealed by Gargacharya in the name-giving ceremony. Garga Purohito Rajan Yadunam Sumahan Tapa. So Gargacharya, he is told by Vasudevji. So that is what is described here. Vrajam Jagamanandasya Vasudeva Prachodita. So Krishna consciousness means one is conscious about Krishna. So it was Vasudeva who did the tapasya, but after performing tapasya, Krishna is born to Vasudeva and Devaki. But Krishna finally goes away from Vasudeva and Devaki to Nanda and Yashoda. So Vasudeva is not thinking, oh, Krishna is gone, now what to do? He is constantly thinking how I must serve Krishna. And so he is aware that under Kshatriya's rules, within 100 days the name-giving ceremony must happen. So out of concern and care, he sends Gargacharya, who is the official priest. So therefore, as soon as Gargacharya is sent, it is described Vasudeva Prachodita. It is Vasudeva's plan, it is Vasudeva's idea. He is saying, you must go. So therefore, Krishna consciousness means that whether there is prosperity or adversity, we are constantly thinking about how we can serve and please Krishna. The main mood is how I can serve Krishna, how I can please Krishna in all circumstances. So therefore Vasudeva is sending, Gargacharya to that place. So in Ramayana we find that Lord Ram is, in Vanvas along with Sita Devi. So they come to Guha, and Guha sees that Ram and Sita need a place to rest, so he offers a beautiful, mattress on the ground made out of grass. And Sita and Ram go to sleep. So Guha looks at Lakshman and says, you go to sleep. You also rest. But Lakshman has in his hand, talwar. He has the sword. And then he has the bow and the arrow. And Lakshman says, I cannot go to sleep because my Lord is in such poverty. And I take a vow that I will not sleep for the next 14 years. And Lakshman starts circumambulating Sita and Ram to protect them. So Lakshman is simply doing that service to protect Ram. At that point, Guha suddenly gets a doubt in his mind. Why is Lakshman not sleeping? Why Lakshman is awake? And why Lakshman is carrying this bow and arrow in his hand? Looks like Lakshman wants to kill Ram and become the king of Ayodhya. So that is his motive while being awake all night. Did Ram tell him this? No. Did Lakshman tell him this? No. He imagined. So Guha imagined this. So Guha, he looks at Lakshman's action, but he suspects his intention. And then so Guha goes behind the bushes and starts circumambulating with his arrow pointed at Lakshman. That if Lakshman tries to do anything smart, I'll kill him. Why? I have to protect Ram. Who gave him that service? No one. He took it. Self-created. And with full enthusiasm he was circumambulating. Okay, so now Guha's soldiers, they look at Guha and they start discussing that what has gone wrong with our king. The king of the tribals, the king of the forest. Someone said, probably he is not satisfied being king of forest, he wants to be king of Ayodhya. So Guha's arrow was pointed at Lakshman, they thought it is pointed at Ram. So they started discussing, looks like he wants to kill Ram and become the king of Ayodhya. That's why he is spending sleepless night. So Guha's action was very clear that he wanted to protect, but his intentions were misrepresented and misinterpreted by his own soldiers. So all these soldiers, they started discussing, we will not allow Ram to be killed. No, we will not. My life is for Ram. Jai Sri Ram. And they were in full enthusiasm. And they started circumambulating behind the trees with all of their arrows pointed at Guha. So that night in that forest, thousands of people were engaged in seva. And there were only two people sleeping peacefully, Sita and Ram. So the seva was going on, but within that seva was deep anxiety, because each person was reading the situation in a different way. So therefore, we find that, all of these pastimes reveal that even when we take to devotional service, even amongst bona fide servants, when we speak about Ayodhya, Ayodhya is a place which is filled with pure devotees. Right? So even in a society where very highly advanced, elevated personalities are staying together, misunderstanding can happen. Difficulties can arise. And why all of these different pastimes of apparent imperfection are portrayed? To show that on the path towards perfection, expect imperfections. Our goal is perfection. That doesn't mean that the path also has to be strewn with perfection only. So therefore, we have to struggle against all these kinds of tendencies in our path forward. And therefore, Vasudeva, he was so powerful, he did so much of tapasya, so much of austerity, but still in spite of all of his power, he was subjected to a lot of injustice. And in this way, he could not be personally present to offer Krishna the name, but still he wanted to serve in some way. And so Gargacharya goes on behalf of Vasudevji. And so we find that when Gargacharya enters the house of Nanda Maharaj welcomes him, receives him with great ecstasy and joy. And so here it is described that as soon as Nanda Maharaj sees Gargacharya, he says, Mahat vichalanam ranam grihinam dina chetasam nishrayasaya bhagavan kalpate na anyatha kvachit. महंत स्वभाव ए तारिते पामोर निज कार्य नहीं तबु या तारा घर. The Mahatma is described in this verse, Mahat Vichalanam Nranam. He says, people like you or Gargacharya, you are always constantly traveling. Grihinam Dina Chetasam, in order to expand the consciousness of people of this world, to transform that selfishness into a feeling of selfless devotional service. To convert that feeling that yes, the more I do things for myself, the more I'll be happy, and expand that consciousness to how I can become an instrument in serving one and all. So Prabhupada writes in the purport of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Pragada premere e swabhava achar nijadukha vignadir nokore vichar. In every relationship there is scarcity, impediment, discomfort and unhappiness. But when that service continues in spite of all of these, then it is a symbol of selfless love and service. So love is defined as service without selfish consideration. Pariksha karite gopal koila agyadan, pariksha hoila sheshe hoila dayavan. So in the Madhavendrapuri pastime, Lord Gopal gave him a test, and then Madhavendrapuri passed that test. Bahu parishrama chandana remuna anila, ananda badila mane dukkha na ganila. With a lot of effort, Shripad Madhavendrapuri brought that chandan to Remuna. Bahu parishrama, chandana remuna anila. But ananda badila mane. So many times when we perform certain austerities, when we go through difficulties, we have a tendency to keep an account of those difficulties. What were the inconveniences I faced? What are the sacrifices I made? What are the difficulties I went through? And we keep account of things which we give significance to. Accounting is always done of things which we give importance to. So here the word says, Ananda badila mane dukkha na ganila. He did not keep account of what or dukkha he went through. Because in that relationship, he was simply concerned about pleasing Lord Gopal and not, to keep an account of what are the difficulties he went through so that he can show later. Why we keep an account? To do hisab later. That okay, I took this much, I gave this much, how can we now get a deal done? So when there is no business motive, then there is no need to keep that account. Dukkhana ganila. And therefore here, Gargacharya has been glorified by Nanda Maharaj that you are a person who just travels around without having any selfish motive. You just travel to distribute the mercy of the Lord. And you go through all kinds of difficult conditions simply to benefit other souls. That's all. Ananda badila mane dukkha na ganila. So one is not concerned with whether someone takes to the process or doesn't take, but we try our best. And as all of you know, when you go out and try to distribute books, it's not that people are waiting with a red carpet. And, we were waiting for you, please come, please come. No, it's very challenging. It's a lot of tapasya. It's not easy, So when I was in college, I was attending the program of Bhakti Rasamrit Maharaj. And he was like talking about, Jagai and Madhai. And I was very inspired. So I went to my hostel and, approached my friend who was a proper drunkard. And I thought if he becomes devotee, everyone will become. So I said, this Saturday you must come for lecture. He said, oh, what lecture? So I said, Gita lecture. He said, are you drunk? You are inviting me for Gita lecture? You know whom you are talking to? I said, of course. Everyone has a future, don't worry. So he said, okay, I'll come on one condition. I'll bring the bottle of liquor with me. So now I was confused because the first time I was inviting somebody and it turned out to be like this. So I thought, what should I do? Should I call the temple and ask, can I bring him with me? So I thought they'll tell me, you also don't come. We don't want such people. So I said, okay, you can come. No problem, on my guarantee. So he came. So he was already drunk in the morning. He would begin his rounds early. So, as we were entering the room, I told him, see, you have brought the bottle till here. Don't take it inside, just keep it here on the top of the ledge, on the top of the door. Just keep it outside. He said, ISKCON people won't drink it, no? I said, they don't drink chai and coffee also, Baba. You just come. So he kept it there, entered inside. I said, I have one condition. You will not open your mouth. He said, okay. He kept quiet. He sat down. So our Prabhu was there. So he looked at new person. He said, what's your name? So I gave the reply. He said, which branch you are in? I gave the reply. Which year? I gave the reply. I was shocked. I am asking him question. Why is he answering? So I said, Prabhu, he is very shy. So don't worry. So after, in the middle of the lecture, he suddenly poked me from the side, this friend of mine, and said, how long he is going to speak? I said, can't say. But food will come only at the end. Because that was his main purport. So he went out in the middle of the talk, finished the bottle, and came back. So after the talk, Maharaj said, okay, you want mala? You want the beads? He said, yes, I want the beads. I said, are you going to chant? He said, he has asked me. So he took the beads, went to the hostel. He had beads in one hand, liquor bottle in another hand. He said, I have joined ISKCON. It took me 1 week to get the beads out of his hands. So we may think, oh, it's very easy to preach Krishna consciousness, anyone will take to it. So I was inspired by Jagai Mathai's story. I thought, if he become, everyone will become. But I realized that preaching is not going to be easy. It's going to be extremely difficult. And so here, Gargacharya is being glorified by Nanda Maharaj as Mahat Vicharanam Dhanam Grihinam Dina Chetasam. That they travel from place to place, giving the message of Krishna. Nishreyasaya Bhagavan Kalpaten Anyatha Kvachit. Not considering any of these considerations of pain and discomfort. So now at this point, Gargacharya, he also feels duty bound to explain. And he says that Yaduna Mahamacharya Kyatascha Bhuvi Sarvada Sutam Maya Sanskritam Te Manye Devaki Sutam. That I must inform you that you are telling me to give the name to your son, but I am famous as the Acharya of the Yadavas. Yaduna Mahamacharya Kyatascha Bhuvi. So everyone knows that he is the Yadavas Acharya. So when they see that, okay, somebody is being sent here from the Yadava clan, so then they will think that, is he son of Devaki? That's why he's come here. Otherwise, why should such a high profile priest come into a small village? So at this point, it's very important to know that Gargacharya is so transparent in his communication. He's saying that actually, if I perform this service, there is a potential threat to Krishna. For me to do this service will be a great privilege. I will get an opportunity to be Krishna's guru. I will get the opportunity to serve Krishna by becoming an instrument and giving him the Naam. And it is a historical service, because when Krishna appears, you get an opportunity to do the name-giving ceremony for Krishna. But even in this circumstance, he thinks it's my duty to inform what will be the consequences. And so he says, there is danger if you allow me to do the service. So think again. Okay. So many times when we are in a mood to do service, when we like to do some service, right, we may not consider all the angles. And we may think that, oh, I like this service, it has come to me, I always wanted to do it, let's do it immediately. But service means that we consider what will be the consequences as far as the master is concerned. So Gargacharya is more concerned about Krishna's security and Krishna's protection and potential attack on Krishna from Kansa, whom he becomes suspicious on seeing that why Gargacharya had to do that. So therefore this is very important to know that when we perform service, we are concerned with the master's desires and his interests, and not with our own desires and interest. And that's the meaning of service. That's the meaning of seva. And so Gargacharya perfectly represents this principle of seva, where he has this in his mind, that whether Krishna will be protected or not in this circumstance, in this situation, like that. So at this juncture, Nanda Maharaj immediately responds and he says, Alakshitosmin rahasi mamakai api gobraje kuru dvijati sanskaran swasti vachana purvakam. He says, don't worry. I am convinced that this service must be done, and I am convinced you are the person who must do it. We will go into the Goshtha, the place where the cows are kept. And in the morning, the cows have gone. Nobody is there. The whole place is empty. Nobody will understand what is going on, because only you will be there, I will be there, and these two children who don't understand anything, they will be there. What they will understand? This Krishna and Balram, they are little kids. Right? So that's the idea of Vatsalya Ras Alakshitosmin Rahasi says. We will go into the, Goshtha, into the Goshala and perform this. So Krishna's Namkaran happens in Goshala. Mamakair api Govraje. There, but I am convinced that the Swasti Vachan must happen. The blessings must come. And the blessings of the great souls is when there is exchange of transcendental sound vibration. And when there is the exchange of transcendental sound vibration, then the blessings are actually transferred. And that's a very important principle. And so Srila Prabhupada, when he was in Shantipur, just before going to the West, one of his godbrothers asked him, "So Swami Maharaj, we heard you are going to America." And Prabhupada said, "Srimad Bhagavatam is going to America. And I am traveling with the Srimad Bhagavatam as their servant. And so I am going with them." So that was Prabhupada's consciousness. That is simply going as a servant of the Bhagavatam. And so he is very, very convinced that I must perform this name-giving ceremony of Krishna, whatever may be the consequence, but we will do it in a way that no one comes to know. Because it's extremely important for Krishna to be blessed in this way. And so, when we are in the association of devotees, we should know that the greatest blessing in the association of devotees is when we are able to exchange transcendental sound vibration. And that's what Parikshit Maharaj also says. Vayam dhanyatama loke guropi kshatra bandhava vayam pibama muhustotta punyam Krishna kathamritam. He says there is a fortunate, more fortunate and most fortunate. One who gets the association of devotees is fortunate. One who gets to hear Bhagavatam in the association is more fortunate. One who gets to hear Bhagavatam repeatedly in the association of devotees is most fortunate. And Prabhupada has designed the program in ISKCON in such a way that we have to hear repeatedly in the association. Right? Even if you don't want to, when you come to the temple, the katha is flowing, the nectar is flowing, so you become part of that wonderful sangha of devotees. So here is Parikshit, who is going to die in a few days, but he considers, I am the most fortunate. Why I am the most fortunate? Because I am getting to hear Harikatha repeatedly in the association of devotees. So therefore here, Shukadeva Goswami is revealing the entire Bhagavatam to Parikshit because he has that kind of a conviction and faith. So like that Nanda Maharaja's conviction that this transcendental sound vibration must emanate from the lips of Gargacharya and my son must hear. And so based on that faith, then Gargacharya reveals the names of Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada, he was questioned by many people, how you became so successful? And Prabhupada said, simply on the basis of the faith in the instructions of Srila Saraswati Thakur. And many of the devotees there, most of them were from America, and they had the faith in Srila Prabhupada's words. And they took Srila Prabhupada's words to heart and they tried their best to fulfill those desires. And everything just manifested. Right? So Prabhupada was in Mumbai and he was sitting on the top of Juhu in that building, just 1976-77 in that period. And Prabhupada was speaking to a group of Indian gentlemen. And one Mr. Brij Ratan Mohta, so big businessman, he entered. And Prabhupada looked at Mohtaji, welcomed him and introduced to everyone. Here is Mr. Mohta. He's a very big businessman. And Brij Ratan Mohtaji looked at Prabhupada and said, Prabhupada, you went to America with 40 rupees. Now you have property all over the world worth 40 crore rupees. You are the real businessman. Prabhupada said, then why don't you join my business? So in 11 years, all over the world, such a powerful movement was created, and such transcendental literatures were published and distributed, which is practically impossible for anyone to imagine. But all of that happened not on the basis of some mundane strategy and management. It happened on the basis of the faith in the transcendental sound. Right? And Prabhupada could do that, and it appeared that, it's simple or easy. But when great souls do something, it may appear very simple. But actually, when we try to do it, we realize that it's not so simple. Prabhupada was on a morning walk, and one of his servants was walking behind him. And one dog started chasing this guy. And he ran to Prabhupada, "Prabhupada, save me." And then there were a group of devotees with Prabhupada. Prabhupada turned around and he saw this dog charging. Prabhupada took the stick in his hand above his head, crouched a little bit, looked at the dog straight in his eyes, and Prabhupada shouted, "Hut!" The dog had never heard this kind of a chastisement before. It was Desi style. "Hut!" So the dog sat down and crouched and put his tail underneath, and with his all four legs was down on the ground. And the devotees were impressed. Prabhupada can control dog also. Wow, amazing. And so then Prabhupada came to Jaipur next year, and then this servant was there in the kitchen. He was cooking roti, chapati. And then suddenly a monkey entered. And he thought, "I know the formula." He picked up the rolling pin, looked at the monkey and said, "Hut!" The monkey picked up a big pot and hit him. He came running to Prabhupada. "Prabhupada, I did the same thing. It didn't work." Prabhupada said, "You saw, but you didn't learn." So you may think, okay, this is what they are doing. Bhakti is chanting up and down. That's it. Oh, very easy. Oh, I see. This is how they distribute books. Oh, this Prabhu looks so happy distributing books. Great, I'll also do it. But it's not so easy. We need to be blessed by the Lord and the Lord's devotees to be able to sustain the practice for full life. And that's what Raghunath Das Goswami was so special. Yah sarva laukaika manobhiruchya saubhagya bhu kachita krishtapachya yatrayam aropana tulya kala sa prema sakhi phalavana tulya. Raghunath Das Goswami's power and strength was not his ability to just give up eating and drinking and sleeping. That was part of it. But his main potency came from the fact that through his service and his service attitude, through his dealings, he was pleasing the devotees so much. Yah sarva laukaika manobhiruchya. And he touched the hearts of all those devotees. And those devotees blessed him. And those blessings of those devotees, it completely nourished his heart. Saubhagya bhu, and his heart became like a fertile soil. Kachit akrishtapacha, which did not require any kind of tilling. The soil was so fertile and so ripe. Yatrayam aropana tulya kala, at that point when the seed fell on his heart, sa prema shakhi phalavana tulya, that seed immediately converted into a huge tree, giving sweet fruits of prema, of love. And therefore, that's the power of blessings. And blessings means when the Vaishnavas are pleased. And that principle was understood by Nanda Maharaj. That I want my son to be blessed by Gargacharya. And there are obstacles, there are risk factors, but still I must do my best. I must take him alakshitosmin. Alakshitosmin rahasi, in a secluded place where no one can see. Because this duty is very important for a father to do for his son. And therefore, he was extremely dutiful in his approach to giving Krishna the best possible protection and service. So, with this, when he was requested again and again, at that point, Gargacharya agreed to perform this particular sacrifice or name-giving ceremony. Evam samprarthito vipra swa chikirshitam evat. Chakara namakaranam gudho rahasi balayo. Evam samprarthito. He was repeatedly asked, please give, please give, please do this service. So chakara namakaranam gudho rahasi swa chikirshitam. Although it was his desire also. So it is not wrong to have a desire to perform a particular service. But when our desire is there, it must match with the desire of the persons who are requesting us to perform that service. Right? So we should not impose, the servant should not impose his desire on the master. But when the master gives the desire and then that desire is also something which is relishable, which you are liking it, that's fine. So that's what is described. Evam samprarthito. Again and again he was requested by Nanda Maharaj. Swa chikirshitam. And it was his inclination also that we are getting chance to serve Krishna like this, why not? Chakara nama karanam gudo rahasi. So in that situation he actually performed this service. So therefore, why devotional service is important is we are chanting every day Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare. The chanting of the holy names is actually a request we are making. O divine energy of the Lord, please engage me in your service. And then when the service actually comes, we start praying, please engage him in your service. Please engage them in your service. So then there is a difference in our prayer and our dealings. So both must match. So therefore, here it's very important to know that Sevak means he is looking for the opportunity to serve. And when the opportunity comes, we reciprocate with joy. Like that. So I was sharing the story the other day. When I joined the temple, so that time, one person from one of the villages in Maharashtra, he joined also. So very, big-bodied, powerful person. And the temple authorities put him in the kitchen with me and, he was asked to roll chapatis. So after 1 week, he came to me and said, I am such a big leader in my village. When I stand up to give a talk in the village, hundreds of people, they sit and listen to me. And here you have brought me to the temple and made me roll chapati. I came here to ISKCON to spread Sanatan Dharma, not to make chapati. So I said, Baba, but temple is run by us only. So whatever has to be done, we have to do together. So sometime we have to make chapati also. It is seva. So for 10-15 days he was struggling and cribbing and complaining and this and that. Then he left. Fast forward 10 years. He met me in one program. I said, oh, how are you doing? He said, actually, after marriage, my wife got back pain. Every day I am making chapati. And he said, I really regret that. Probably I should have done there only. Probably in 1 or 2 years my service would have changed. So you try to change circumstances thinking, okay, let me avoid here, let me avoid here, let me avoid there. So whatever service is meant for us will come around our neck before we leave the body. And we can't escape. It's not possible. So therefore, we are here to perform this service. Service means we have to serve with honesty. That service is a privilege, not a burden. And so Krishna is giving us this opportunity to serve, and it is a great privilege. Krishna pada padma gandha yei jana pai, brahma loka adi sukha tare nahi bhai. Raghunath Das Goswami had such an opulent background. Nityananda Prabhu is glorifying him, saying that he has smelt the fragrance of the dust of Krishna's lotus feet. Krishna pada padma gandha yejana pai. So such a person will not be enchanted by Brahma Loka Adisukh. So therefore, here Gargacharya gets the privilege of serving Krishna by giving him the transcendental name. And so, in this verse which is described, Janma Karma Chame Divyam Evam Yo Veti Tattvataha. When we understand these birth, name, qualities, pastimes of Krishna, Tattvataha, in reality, then because of meditating on Krishna and changing the meditation from our own glories to Krishna's glories, at the time of death, Tyaktva Deham Punarjanma. At the time of death, we are not shocked by the helplessness which the situation of death creates. Because if all our life we are in the illusion that I am in control, I have the power, I can plan, I can manage, nothing will happen without my sanction. So then death comes as a very rude shock, because everything happens so suddenly and without our consent, that we are in for a terrible, terrible experience. So therefore, our entire process of practice of sadhana bhakti is to prepare ourselves for that very shocking moment where practically however many plans we may have fulfilled in our life and how many other unfulfilled plans we may have, the notice to vacate this body comes. And not even 1 second delay is tolerated. And at that moment, we can convert the situation of the greatest defeat to the greatest victory by thinking about Krishna's name, form, pastimes and paraphernalia, and use that exit to not just exit from this body, but to exit from the material world and enter into Krishna's eternal pastimes in the spiritual world. Thank you all very much. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Any questions? Yeah, Naveen Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Gauranga Prabhu, for sharing your wisdom. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Gauranga Prabhu, for sharing your wisdom and enlightening us with Bhagavad Gita. In today's day and age, conditional surrender is very much en vogue. It's the flavor of the age. The people like to pick and choose and use their intelligence how to avoid real surrender.
Right.
Which is kind of a scary proposition, this Hey Krishna, Karuna Sindhu, Dinabandhu Jagatpate, throw both hands up in the air. Seems like, where's my safety net? Where's that line? I'm going out on the limb. And so, what is your word of advice? Because we're here in a community and everybody's trying to somehow keep the conditional, the temporary alive, while at the same time striving for the eternal. And so, Krishna's flute is there calling. At the same time, there are some other issues that are pending. And so the agenda may get a little mixed sometimes.
Yeah.
So how to set the proper priorities, this proper mood and attitude to actually achieve that full surrender.
As Kali Yuga progresses, it will become more and more challenging to inspire people to, experience the genuine Krishna conscious process. And in the last 50 years, as ISKCON has spread worldwide, the number of devotees has grown exponentially. To the same degree, the number of quality leaders have not appeared. So I think one of the biggest challenges in ISKCON is also the leadership crisis. Because we are more and more getting into an age where everyone wants to see example. Where is the example? So here you are fortunate, you have HG Prabhu who is leading from the front. So for you, the nectar of book distribution is not theory. It is practical. You can see somebody who is experiencing it, who is enjoying it, who is living it. So it becomes much easy to, understand book distribution when you see through the example of such personalities. Right? But in other places, I'm just saying that not every place may have the privilege of having a genuine example to follow. And therefore, the greatest crisis will be the leadership crisis. And the solution to that is, there has to be a solid plan for empowering the next generation of leaders and training them up and creating that high degree of example. Because without that example, many people may get the excuse that, okay, I don't need to do this, I don't need to do that. And therefore, I think that the expansion of Krishna consciousness happened all over the world. And as Prabhupada said, boiling the milk must happen. And boiling the milk begins when each devotee takes it as a responsibility to intensify his practice of the process of Krishna consciousness. And we must get sufficient maturity to know that for progressing on this path, it is important for me to understand the need for submission. Otherwise, many times we are waiting. When will that perfect person come whom I feel inspired to submit to? And that never happened. Right? So I was sharing the story of Gaur Govind Maharaj. He is in Orissa. So Prabhupada told him to translate in Uriya, the Bhagavatam. So Prabhupada was asking him progress report, how many pages you have done. He said, Prabhupada, morning till evening I am doing management. Where is the time? So Prabhupada said, translating Bhagavatam is the most important. Give up everything else and just do this. But then who will do other things? So Prabhupada saw one devotee. Prabhupada said, we will make him manager. So he said, but he is going to New York tomorrow. Prabhupada said, we'll change his plan. So he said, okay, go and tell him then. So Prabhupada called this devotee. And this devotee offered obeisances to Prabhupada and said, yes, Prabhupada, what can I do for you? Prabhupada said, I want you to stay here and become manager here in Bhubaneswar. So he got a heart attack, right? Because he had already made plans. He said, Prabhupada, the climate in India doesn't suit me. Prabhupada said, only when you stay longer it will suit you. So then he started thinking, Prabhupada, this food here and the water and all this, I'm not able to digest. Prabhupada said, I will write down what you should eat, what you should not eat. Just follow it, everything will be fine. He said, Prabhupada, in New York they started a new department. I have to go and take over. Prabhupada said, I'll tell someone else to take over, don't worry. Department will go on. You stay. He said, Prabhupada, I can't get along with the local GBC. Prabhupada said, today only I will change the GBC. I was thinking fast, now what to do? All the astras were shot. So he had the final Brahmastra. He said, Prabhupada, I am so busy morning till night, I am not able to chant 16 rounds. Prabhupada, if you are busy morning till night, no problem, even if you don't chant. So he was like totally bewildered. So then finally Prabhupada, made him the manager there. Okay, so we can't imagine this kind of a interaction in today's situation. We begin by, okay, are you feeling inspired? How do you feel? Good, bad, ugly? Okay. So it's a very challenging scenario. Nowadays in Chowpatty, the young brahmachari is coming for pot wash, new bhakta. In between pot wash, he go out and say, "Arey, my 10 counsellors have come to meet me." So he's a new brahmachari who is just, washing pot, but he already has a congregation which he is cultivating. So it's a very different scenario. So it is very important for those who are getting connected to understand the principle that without going through the process, you can't come to the real stuff. How I would want to go through that process, I must understand from the scriptures, from the example, from Lilamrita and Acharya's, wonderful example, and then try to follow. Otherwise, it's difficult for someone to impose. So therefore, the key is education and training. When every devotee in ISKCON gets education and training and reads about all of these things and gets inspired that yes, I should not be in the mood of negotiation, I should be in the mood of cooperation and submission. The more someone is in the mood of negotiation, the more it becomes difficult and no one can push anyone beyond a certain limit.
Thank you, Prabhu. The empowerment is supposed to come from up to down. When the down is reaching up to knock on the door and say, "Hey Baba, where is the empowerment?" When is it gonna come?
Yeah.
It becomes a little awkward because it's not really the right attitude.
Yeah.
But then still, if it's not happening for whatever reasons, people feel insecure, people feel entitlement mentality, they feel, we have worked so hard, we're in position now, then things get quite stuck. And as you mentioned, there is a vacuum in many parts of the world. So we are having Shastra courses and education. At the same time, things do not seem to get unstuck. So is it finally that final knock on everyone's door that will move things, or is there some other way of how to get these blocks out of the way?
Basically, as part of our philosophy, Prabhupada has also shown by his own example how he was translating and doing everything personally till the very end. So on one hand, we have the example of, fighting till the very end. And then there is also this other consideration. So to balance both will happen over a period of time when the right balance will emerge. So we are at a very crucial point in the history of ISKCON's growth, where a lot of powerful tacit knowledge is with many of the experienced leaders. And that experience which they have gone through to set up ISKCON with so much difficulty needs to be transmitted in a way. So we are creating a questionnaire and a kind of whole system for video recording some of these experienced devotees on some of their challenges they have faced and what we can learn. Because that's a very important knowledge transmission which must happen. because like 40-50 years of battles and the experiences learned from those battles are locked up in their hearts and brains. So I think the future generation will benefit a lot. And so there is a lot of difference between the first 50 years and the next 50 years. Because practically from the last 10 years, globally, ISKCON is seeing a phenomena where very highly qualified, very intelligent, very successful people are joining ISKCON's congregation and ashrams, both. And so the number of people who are getting connected to ISKCON, they are joining of such high caliber, and they are very successful and accomplished in their own professions and jobs and their businesses outside. So when they come to the temple, they come with a lot of expectation. But, if you are not able to provide them the proper kind of engagement and empowerment and feeling of value and contribution, then after some time they may become disillusioned and they may not remain inspired. And this is particularly so, in India, because the numbers are growing at a much faster rate than we are able to process and engage them. So, and it's even more, situation is challenging inside the Brahmacharya ashram, where like hundreds of people are joining, and we don't really have a full plan for them for the next so many years, how we want to engage them and things like that. So I think the first 50 years had their challenges to establish. The next 50 years we'll have to negotiate the curve on engagement and empowerment. And I think we have to, go through the journey together. So most important thing is everyone must give up the thought that someone has the switch there for the solution and they'll just switch it on and the light bulb will glow. Let me tell you, this phenomena has not been seen before. We have to go through it together. And it will emerge with a lot of prayer. Without prayer and blessings, nothing will manifest. So it's not just going to pop out of the books like that. No tapasya, no gain. So a lot of tapasya will be required before some drops of realization start percolating, drop by drop. Okay. Yeah. Yes. Oh, you have the mic, okay.
Prabhuji, you talked about 100
Shri
offenses.
Mahaprabhu.
100 offenses, 1,000 offenses and 10,000 offenses. Can you say a little more about that, and in particular what kind of offenses you were referring to?
What kind of offenses? Basically, it's a very detailed subject matter, but I just made it a point. Aparadha has two meanings. One is aparadha, that which takes you away from Srimati Radharani or devotional service. Another meaning of aparadha is apa and radha. Radha means satisfaction. So aparadha basically means an attitude, an action which diminishes satisfaction, diminishes the experience of satisfaction over a period of time. And when does that happen? When you are treating the other devotee, externally you are showing respect, but internally your heart is, filled with doubts and improper feelings. So when there is a gap between what you are showing externally due to social reasons and what you are experiencing internally due to a crisis of faith, so that dichotomy creates diminishing satisfaction. You are not satisfied because you are faking it. You are looking at devotees and saying, Prabhu, Hari Bol, my obeisances. But that's not what you're thinking. You're thinking something else. So then it creates diminishing satisfaction. So then you can experience that as you're, practicing the process, that something is wrong. So the most important thing is Trinadapi sunichena taroriva saishnuna amanina manadena kirtaniya sadhari. So therefore the most important verse is Matra sparashastu kaunteya shitoshna sukha dukkhada. So you have to apply a lot of tolerance in your life. Okay? So that's aparadha. Because papa and aparadha. Papa is dhuli lepa, aparadha is vajra lepa. Dhuli lepa means when there is some dust and there is a mark on the dust, it can be erased. But there is a mark in stone that can't be erased. So vajra lepa. When a thunderbolt makes a mark, it's very deep and sharp. So the things which we do due to offenses are very difficult to counteract. So we have to be very careful about the offenses. Like that. So many times when we hear Prabhupada said, chant Hare Krishna and be happy. So we don't realize what the and contains. And it's just one word, but it goes on expanding. A lot of things is included within that. And be happy. So we have to be very careful. So I say NOI. NOI means neglectful, offensive and improper practice of bhakti. So when you are neglectful, offensive, improper in the practice, then you feel something is wrong, something is missing. Okay? Otherwise, like I was sharing the story the other day, the country head of Citibank, he was talking to me a couple of years ago. And he said, wow, ISKCON is better managed than even Citibank, I said, hey, which ISKCON you went to? Which temple? He said, no, I go to LA, 4:30 in the morning sharp. The Pujari blows 3 times shank. Puja starts. On dot. You can set the time. I went to London, 4:30. Sydney, 4:30. Nairobi, 4:30. Mumbai, 4:30. Wherever I go in the morning, Mangal Aarti starts dot on 4:30. What standards you are maintaining? Amazing. Your governance is proper, perfect, pakka. I said, how long you stay in the temple? He said, I leave at 5 after the darshan closes. I said, the Leela begins after that. So many times when someone comes for a short period of time, they are really impressed. They really like and think that. So that's how we are when we are for a small period of time, in the initial period. And then familiarity breeds contempt. So if we are in that mood, then we appreciate. But when you become familiar, then you take things for granted. So that's an important point to be recognized. Okay?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, wonderful lecture. Thank you for that. You made a point regarding Vasudev carrying Krishna, and he had after so many failures, he had faith in Krishna's instruction that you will take me, things will be fine. The thing is, in today's world, we know books are available to take instructions, but that inspiration from when you're saying there's a leadership crisis, putting 100% faith leads to a lot of doubts in mind. How to clear that doubt? If you can give some practical tips that how we can develop that kind of mood where surrender becomes more simpler, because we have seen the past. It's putting 100%. Will that be okay? Will that
surrender becomes more simpler?
So, yeah,
that's a contradiction.
We need tips. It is oxymoron.
So, there are no shortcuts, first of all. So, you have to go through the whole process. And I think the most important thing is that you understand the philosophy strongly, powerfully, and then you try to apply it to the best of your ability. Right? So, you should know that Whether I have to follow him or him or him, ultimately I have to follow. So the taste of the food is very much dependent many times on the hunger I have. If hunger is not there, then whatever may be cooked, we will find 10 faults. Many times kids are not in a mood to eat. So you bring anything. No. I don't want this. The mood is not there to eat. What can be done? We were in Yatra and somebody said, we want to make poha. It's a new group. I said, don't try. It's a big Yatra, 2,000 people, 3,000. If you make a mistake, we'll have to hear 3,000 feedback. They said, you are never giving us chance. You should empower. Give the lo, karo. So they made, and it turned out to be hard. So I knew I am finished today. Because public don't know that somebody else has cooked today. So one of the devotee who loves giving feedback, some people really love that seva. They are looking for a chance when we can give feedback. So he came up to me and said, kya khilaya poha? Taat toot gaya. My tooth fell. I'm already old and then you make like this. What do you expect? I said, what poha? It was not poha, it was cornflakes. He said, what? I said, you're supposed to have mixed with your herbal tea and taken. It was cornflakes. Nobody told me. I said, you never asked me. So he got sufficiently confused, I went. So when someone is, hungry, so when the deep hunger is there, whatever you give. So on the day after Pandav Nirjal Ekadashi, whether you give lemon sharbat or you give plain water or this or that, whatever you give, people want to drink something. Right? So like that, when there is a deep desire to connect with Krishna, sambandha, so in spite of all obstacles, difficulties, person will connect. If the desire is weak, then you will look for any excuse not to connect. Is it not? So ultimately, we have to focus only on one thing, our desire and aspiration. So that's basically the Swatantrata Ratna, the jewel of our free will. An association creates aspiration. So once we are in the association of devotees, and then Prabhupada had every reason to feel discouraged. Business collapse, wife anti, children not supporting, god brothers fighting, Gaudiya Math collapse. Practically everywhere he looked, nothing was working. Okay, support for going to America, nil. Ticket, not there. So what was there? So every reason was there for him to say, nahi hone wala, forget it. 1922, Saraswati Thakur said something to me, but looks like, I can't do it. So to say I can't do it is the easiest thing. Doesn't take much. So therefore, many times when we are used to the modern day methods, so modern day education and all the technology and everything, it conditions us to shortcuts. And if you are able to find an effective shortcut, you are considered more intelligent. Because you are rewarded for finding shortcuts, for finding things more convenient, with less effort, which gives less pain. Right? But bhakti is exactly opposite. It is exactly the opposite. It is the path of going through maximum resistance, maximum pain. Because bhakti begins when you move out of the comfort zone and every pore start experiencing pain. then devotional service begins. So therefore these are two exactly opposite paradigms. And so Bhagavatam is replete with examples of devotee after devotee who went through extremely challenging situations to be able to then purchase Krishna. Right? So therefore, if we get conditioned to the shortcut process, then we'll always be in difficulty. So we have to understand that this is the process of embracing the more difficult path, embracing the more challenging path, embracing a situation which is painful, but for the sake of giving pleasure to Krishna. That is called the Swarupagata Sukh. The constitutional position of the soul is to see the smile on Krishna's face. And to be able to see the smile on his face, one is willing to go through a lot of anxiety and difficulty. Like that. So that's the paradigm. And when that is the case, then okay, you have this person or that person or this person or that person. That is, a detail as far as your application is concerned. But first we should be fully convinced that whoever may be present, I am going to give my 100% effort in applying this process. So once you are convinced about that, then other things follow. If you have determined, I am going to run the marathon, so if he is the coach or he is the coach or he is the coach or they are the coach or whoever is the coach, you will run the marathon. If you are half confident whether I will make the marathon or not, then you say, coach doesn't look good. Next year I will come. Marathon. Why? Because the very prospect of running and getting out of breath, it kind of scares you. Because you are thinking, who will go through this whole thing? So therefore, to the extent we keep protecting our false ego, thinking that, this is a great asset which I have managed to, save for millions of lifetimes. To that extent, we will always be touchy about that. But once you allow something to smash through that, so then automatically you become fearless after some time, because it's a matter of time only. Okay? So it sounds simple, but the experience is painful. But the whole process of treatment of a wound is also painful. So when the doctor, cuts through that pus, it's painful. But following that, it is painful, but it is the process of healing. It is part of the process of healing. So once you are convinced that pain is part of the process of healing, then you are willing to go through that, expert touch of the doctor, rather than go through the prolonged pain of retaining that wound for a long time. So you have to decide on which pain you need to go through. Keeping that, untreated wound and go through the pain forever, or allow that to be cut through, go through some excruciating pain, but then make sure that the healing process begins. Okay? Jai Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanandi. Thank you very much.
Jai.